Today's talk is called The Reality of Physicality. So let me start out, as I've been doing, telling you my point. I have a twofold point today. The first is, life is reality. Physicality is way more malleable than we all seem to get so far. That there is a malleability to what is going on here in how we are going through our day-to-day that somehow we don't fully get. Or if we do, I think our lives might be different than they are so far. And the second part of my point is that we're not here to become spiritually enlightened. We come here to be spiritually aware, and I'm going to go through the difference. Because the physicality is our reason for beingness. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that the moment we get out of these bodies, we're done and we transition, boom, spiritually enlightened. That the moment before we were in these spiritual bodies, in these physical bodies, we were spiritually enlightened. And yet, we thought being in these bodies was a big enough deal to give that up. Because I believe that we knew that was going to happen. That we were, that being born into this world came with a caution like a warning label. Like you get on all the drugs on TV now. Warning label said, you will forget who you truly are and spend the rest of your days trying to remember again until you're back into the all. So if you're up for that, you can go into this body and have whatever experience you may get to have, and a lot of that is unknown. Do you still want to do it? And everybody here and everybody born said yes. I still, even though I'm going to forget who I really am, I'm going to forget all the goodness of and power and presence of who I am, I'm going to forget all that once I'm in this body, that I may even start out life by totally freaking out over having a body. I still want to do it. Even though I may go through, because my guess is that in this other realm, we get to see what other people are going through, right? We get to see that people are going through some painful times with health and relationships and money, suffering, and all this, right? All this suffering going on, and there's still people or souls out there going, I want to be born into this. And so there's a choice that comes with coming into these bodies, because there must be something really special and different about not being enlightened and having this physical experience. And the more I get to realize this, the more I realize, for instance, how important touch is. I spend as much time every single day touching my wife as much as possible. Now, you look at her and you can see why. But touch, I used to have, when I first became a minister, I started the very first online center for Centers for Spiritual Being. It was completely online. And when I was running it, the best we got it to was reaching about 2,500 people a week. So we considered ourselves pretty successful. But then I started to realize that I was really missing something here. And that was touch. It was hugs. I missed Sunday hugs. I look forward to, at the end of service, going to the back of the room and having people come down the center aisle and say hi before they leave or go downstairs to eat and hug me. and I get to hug you. I really, really like that part. It's actually my favorite part of the whole service. Hugging people when they come in, hugging people when they leave. I love hugs. I love touch. I love the physicality of it all. And so I think that that's a big reason we come here. Is because it's really nice to be flying in the air through, and having those energetic, knowing we're home and at one. But we still choose to come here. No matter what we wind up going through. No matter how much suffering we deal with. There's very few people. There are people who commit suicide in the world. They go, okay, I've had enough, I'm going back. And that's a choice. For better or for worse, that's a choice. And maybe they get back and maybe go, okay, I want to try again, and they get back in line for whatever, however that works out there to get a chance to come back and give it another shot. But for the largest majority of people holding on to being in these bodies as long as humanly possible, no matter how much they're suffering, there's got to be a reason. And we go along with fear of death as the reason, but I'm not so sure. Because somewhere in all of us, we must have that inkling of memory that we actually don't die. That there's actually more going on. And no matter what church you show up to, they're talking about what happens after. Some of us have more fun ideas than others about what goes on after. So we all have this idea that there's more going on. So it can't just be a fear of death. It has to be a grappling with what we get to do while we're in these bodies. So I want to encourage you to, in your spiritual journey, don't forget that touch and using and eating, right? Eating really good tasting food, experiencing what we see through our eyes in terms of the beauty of sunsets, the magnificence of sunrises. I don't know how much we get to do that once we leave these bodies. So you want to take time. The whole idea about smelling the roses, smell. Smell is another function. Hearing. Taking these not for granted, but really breathing in every moment of what is surrounding us so that we can feel the magnificence of what it is to be in these bodies. Now I want to talk about the second part of this, which is the malleability of it. I think of life like Play-Doh more than concrete. A lot of people come at me and talk to me about reality as if it's made in concrete. But I think of it more like Play-Doh. But here's the thing about Play-Doh. I remember this may be hard to imagine, but I was a very rambunctious kid. And I didn't like doing things the way other people were doing them. I wanted to discover my own ways. And I'm talking about at a really early age. The thing about it is my parents, who were unprepared for somebody with enough energy to light up an entire city, and a need to not follow the way others were doing it, which I don't even know where that came from, actually thought that I may be disabled mentally. And one of the ways they thought that possible is when they showed me Play-Doh, and Play-Doh comes with those cookie cutter things. I did not understand using the cookie cutters. I didn't get it. I didn't understand its purpose. I didn't understand why. Why would I want to have this stuff that could go so cool in my hands and I could do all these really weird and interesting things with it? Why would I want to just stick it through a cookie cutter? And so because I didn't get the idea of using the cookie cutter, they thought there may be something wrong with me and had me tested for it. And I think that that's what happens with lots of creatives, or with all of us on some level, is even though life is like Play-Doh, we're taught to use the cookie cutters, which makes us think it's cement, because it has to be used this way. We're taught, well, the only way to be happy is to make a ton of money and to have a job you may be unhappy at to get to where you have a ton of money and then you get to be happy. We're taught that there are certain ways in which you have to go about life, and if you don't go about life those ways, you won't be happy. You won't get the full experience of life. But all the ways in which we're taught are cookie cutter ways. And yet every invention, every innovation that has ever occurred has been an out-of-the-box innovation. There is no innovation in a cookie cutter. Yet that's what we're taught. And because we're taught that way, we start thinking that Play-Doh isn't actually Play-Doh, it's cement. And we start thinking that the reality we're looking at is the way it is, because everybody's been telling us that since the day we were born. And if you start thinking differently, you may be considered mentally disabled and put on a track to convince you that there's something wrong with you. That's what happened to me. I was put in special classes where they were convinced that there must be something wrong with me because I would not adhere to the way everybody else did things. It took them till I was in second grade to actually start realizing that maybe I had some intelligence. Because up to that point, I didn't fit in anywhere. I still remember first grade, when the teacher said you had to sit in your seat, I thought she was kidding. I didn't even think that that was a real thing. And so I'm walking around the classroom. She starts walking after me. I think we're playing a game. I start running. She starts running after me. And before I know it, I'm being grabbed by the scruff of the neck, pulled down to the principal's office, and I don't even know what's going on because I thought we were just playing a game. But they were positive something was wrong with me. Turns out, I had 160 IQ. They didn't know that. They just thought, this guy's disabled. This kid's disabled. And so, cookie cutters, how we look at what's going on, really can shape us in ways that limit the limitlessness that's truly possible here. It took me forever to figure out that my need to be outside the cookie cutter actually could work for me. I mean, I have spent most of my life thinking there was something wrong with me. It took this teaching to finally get me to see things differently. It took this teaching for me to finally start opening to the idea that there may be more going on and that I was seeing what others did not. And then I met others who were seeing what others did not too. And met others who were seeing what others did not too. And that's when my life first began to sparkle. But boy, it took really being willing to take a look. And I want you to know that it's worth it. To see that no matter what it is you think is real and solid is just looking through a cookie cutter. That Play-Doh is willing, our sense of reality, of what's going on, is willing to be molded in any way in which we can imagine. So this comes down to your imagination. This comes down to our imagination. What is it we want? What is it we want to see? There are many teachings around spiritual enlightenment. But I think what I love most about what Ernest Holmes writes about is that he's talking about a spiritual awareness that allows us to see outside the cookie cutter. A spiritual awareness that allows us to, in this physicality, apply a power and a presence that allows us to mold our lives in ways that have nothing to do with the cookie cutter reality that 98.9% of the people are walking around with. We really get to see the world differently, and in so imagine it differently, and in so create it differently. That's what we're doing here. That's why we show up. That's why we take classes. That's why we study this stuff. It's a simple teaching, but we are complex because we have been grown to look at life through cookie cutters. So what cookie cutters are limiting you? What cookie cutters have you taken on as this is the way it is? Because it never is the way it is, unless you make it so. Everything has a malleability to it, but it's up to us to practice, because we have to somehow, through this practice, overcome that which we have been taught about Play-Doh. That using the cookie cutter is best. I don't think so. I think there is a brilliance here, a magnificence. And as we become more aware, then we get to use it. And it doesn't matter whether you're 5, 3, or 105. As long as you're breathing breath, you get to use this. You get to use the power of the malleability that life truly is. You get to apply it to your circumstances by knowing there is a greater sense of good going on here. There is something here that is malleable. I know that there are certain situations in my life today that I'm still looking at, that I still get caught in the cookie cutter thoughts of reality around. So that means I still have practice to do, because so far I'm not moving things around in a way that I imagine. And I allow my imagination to fly. The greatest freedom that I have discovered is not only the fact that there's nothing wrong with me, but that I can allow my imagination to fly. And so can you. There is no spot where God is not. You get to have that malleability as long as you're willing to keep applying it. Don't ever stop. Don't ever stop thinking that you're done, that this is as good as it gets. Don't ever think this is as good as it gets. There's always something greater for you to imagine. Take the time to do that. Imagine that, and then keep imagining it. and keep opening to the possibility. Will that mean it changes and you're going to get everything you ever thought of and this and that and the other thing? I don't know. I don't know how all this works in the end. This is what I do know. I do know that the more we are willing to imagine, the more we are willing to see life as malleable, the better things get. The more becomes available to us. The more the opportunities arise that our lives just keep growing and getting better. That's what my mom did right to the very end. She went out with a bang. It would have been easy to buy into the cookie-cutter idea of how those last 6 months should have played. But she took her own turn with it, took on her own way of doing it. And for me, was a real example of what's possible. No matter what others say. And that's what's possible for you. Dream big, imagine large, and keep remembering it's malleable, it's Play-Doh, this life that's happening in each moment. Stay away from the cookie cutters. We've all had enough of that. And be willing to see your life in any way you can imagine. I love you. Thank you. All right, who's going to come up today and be our courageous person of prayer? We need somebody up here. And as you know, I'm willing to hang out as long as it takes. So, who's going to be courageous enough to come on up? There you go. Come on, Mary. Come on down. Tell us what you'd like us to pray for today.
For continued improvement on my foot healing. That's what I want.
There you go. All right, we need 8 to 10 folks up here. And as always, we start within our own hearts. Take a deep breath, close your eyes and relax. And feel the love and healing power within your heart. Now feel it expand throughout your entire body. Feel that healing, malleable presence throughout your every cell of your body. Healing, loving yourself. And now feel it expand to where you feel the entire spiritual family of love, of healing light. And as this great power now, we send that power through Mary, knowing her health and well-being, knowing her foot completely healed and vital as every cell aligns itself with the healing of God, Spirit, of presence. Feel that healing energy in this room that we have created as a spiritual entity together, flowing through Mary, as Mary, right here and right now. And I am so grateful for the power and the presence, the healing, loving energy that we are, the healing and loving that has already occurred for Mary right here and now, as we all say together, and so it is. All right. Excellent. All right, take out what you're going to give and hold it in your hand. Unfold it, whether it be $1, $10, $100, thousands of dollars, deeds of property, gold mines, whatever it is, hold it in your hand. As we all say together, God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What I give, I receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am, and so it is.